I a Jew, I would be a Zionist. And my father pointed out to me, I did not need to be a Jew to be a Zionist, for I am. Israel is essential to the security of Jews worldwide. And I say again, you need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. The fact is that since then, I've known every single prime minister, and it's been an honor, formed strong working relations with each of them. And now, this is my 10th visit. Every chance to return to this great country, where the ancient roots of the Jewish people date back to biblical times, is a blessing. Because the connection between the Israeli people and the American people is bone deep. We invest in each other. We dream together.
Good day, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the show. Do you know what a Zionist is? Are you a Zionist? Do you support Zionists? If you never heard this term, you're probably just a pawn. Glenn, what is a Zionist?
G-Man thinks the Zionist is nothing more than a glorified globalist, an elitist. People in the United Nations, the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, WEF, the World Economic Forum, Bank of International Settlements, that's the central bank of central banks. Who owns these banks? That's in Basel, Switzerland. The IMF, the International Monetary Fund. The World Bank, number 2 and number 3 of central banks in the world. There seems to be a pattern, and they're all leading to a few using nefarious ways to control, obviously, the many, for the benefit of the few at the sacrifice of the many. This is what happens when the many don't know what's really going on.
Well, the reason why we brought this up today, and it is a subject of today's discussion, what is a Zionism, is because here in Montreal in the last 48 hours, we had 2 incidents. The synagogue was bombed, well, I don't know, the firebomb with the Molotov cocktails, and they found more around. And on Saturday, there was a huge protest in pro-Palestinian support, and they had a local imam, the leader of a Muslim community, who somehow was implicated into 9/11, by the way, Glenn. I don't know if you know that or not. Adil Charkoui, I don't know how to pronounce that name, but Charkoui, possibly.
You said he was implicated in 9/11?
Yeah, and
was he part of the U.S. government too?
Yeah, well, he's definitely. That's the discussion that I actually do want to have today, is because everything that we know around us, like we'll use the recent years, you create a problem, then you come up with a solution.
And
right?
Profit off the solution.
You profit off the solution.
So it's an investment. You're looking for a return on your investment.
Yeah, and also you got to come off as a savior. I'm going to save you from this evil, but without reminding people that you created it. Now, most likely this guy is probably a CIA asset, or, since we're in Canada, he's RCMP asset, or whoever. He's a Zionist asset, in my opinion. Apparently, he came out, and I don't know if he said it because they're using the word according to translation. So it might have been a Muslim prayer. And in the Muslim prayer, apparently he said, God take care of aggressor Zionists. And he addressed the public saying, make sure you don't leave one. Right? So they made a big deal. It was all over CJD, which is a local radio station. Pretty much it's the liberal newspeak versus the outlet, the propaganda, right? And they talked at length about how it is important to protect the Israelis and Israeli interests and how close we are and how terrible the Hamas is and all that stuff. Here on our show, we had Yanai Gur from Israel. Right after the events of October 7th, we asked them, we called them and said, what is going on? And one of the conversation that we had, we brought up, and Glenn, that was you who brought it up, that Hamas was created by Israel, is the counter to the Palestinian movement, freedom movement, right? So they can control. And every time we talk about Hamas being the most evil thing, we forget the fact that it was artificially created by Israelis, by Mossad, to do the bidding of Mossad for whatever purposes. Mujahideen, right? Good example of that. ISIS, Al Qaeda, it's all those are control opposition. Bloc Québécois is a control opposition. The reason why Bloc Québécois is control opposition because they are supposed to be opposed to a federalist, right? To a liberal party specifically right now. But now they're in cahoots with all this carbon tax stuff going on. But I digress from the original statement. Let's watch another video. That's Dr. Shiva. I don't know if you guys know who that is, but here's the video.
Hamas was created by Israel. Here is the former Israeli ambassador to Germany, openly stated in 2015. It was the Israeli government that created Hamas to counteract the growing popularity of the Palestinian National Liberation Movement. This is classic intelligence techniques where you create your opposition that you can control, typically make them crazy radical. Here is Mossad chief himself. This is just this year. The Mossad chief, Yossi Cohen, visiting Qatar to tell them to continue funding Hamas. Zionism has nothing to do with Judaism. It's racist. Still to this day, the non-Ashkenazi Jews are treated as badly as the Palestinians. There are many, many Jews who are anti-Zionist.
We want the world to know the Zionist movement is not a Jewish movement. It is the cause of the oppression of not only the Muslims and the Christians in Palestine, but of the Jews. Hundreds of thousands of Jews stand in Palestine, have lived there prior to the state, continuing to live till today, and demonstrate daily and get brutally beaten and arrested.
Here's a video of actually Orthodox Jews, you know, protesting in support of Palestine, right? So are they being anti-Semite, Glenn? You know, that's counterintuitive, right? You can't call those Jews or
Plus,
Jews.
In the West here, if you're not pro-Jewish, then right away you're labeled an anti-Semitic. You know, it's either you're with us or you're against us. No. We're against the globalist Zionists who create all this division amongst the people. Now you have the Hasidic / Orthodox Jews exposing certain parts of their own government in Israel that are part of the globalist agenda to create problems purposely to make profit off these problems that they create, at the expense of everybody else. Women, children, people being maimed, killed, you know, hurt, devastated for the rest of their life. They're going to have all this trauma. For what? For a few people to make money? That's the whole point of things?
Well, Glenn, we did the show recently. I don't know the name of it, but just few where it's a false flag. We said that the whole operation was in Israel was a false flag, and we contributed to the new Silk Road and to Netanyahu's presentation not so long ago, creating a new Silk Road from India, which makes sense because that becoming the new industrial center. Now we learn that even Apple, I think, is going to produce their product now in India. Right? So they're trying to bring the new trade route through Saudi Arabia. So they're making friends with Saudi Arabia again, and they're building ports in Israel to deliver the goods to Europe and the West in general, right, Glenn?
Building ports in Israel, well, there's not enough waterfront, so this is the reason why they want to take more territory from the Palestinian to increase the size of these ports, so to use the waterways to get to a more efficient way of bringing their products to Europe.
And brothers and sisters, if I have to qualify myself to have this discussion, okay, I'll take a step back. If there is a group of people that you cannot openly talk about, or you be canceled, at least, or here in Canada, where hate speech is actually somewhere in the law, right? You can actually have a criminal charge hang on your head over this. You actually got to somehow qualify yourself to protect yourself. But if we have this whole discussion, I actually have to tell you, it's okay for me to talk about Jews because I have Jewish family. That makes no sense. That's not a freedom of speech. That's not a freedom of speech. Now, also, going back to Hamas, if Hamas was true Palestinian or pro-Palestinian freedom movement, they would truly care about the Palestinians themselves, or if the aggression and the militaristic way of dealing with Israel was the only way, they would actually arm Palestinians with weapons, not rocks. There's tons of videos that Palestine brought to UN Council where you can see Palestinians protesting and throwing rocks towards the fence that separates Gaza from Israel, and they're being picked by snipers and killed and maimed. And there's plenty of those videos. I'm not even going to play that. But the idea is that now that you know the fact that Hamas is the Israeli creating fraction, and we're still going to have this conversation condemning the Hamas without condemning the creators of Hamas. That's gaslighting in a way, right, Glenn?
Yeah, obviously we know who's winning the war in the Middle East right now, but we know who's losing the information war in the rest of the world, because you see by far pro-Palestinian protesting going on just about in every country in the world, all the big capitals, all the big cities. So this information war, the first casualty of war is the truth. But the truth seems to be much more pervasive in many other parts of the world rather than in the West. It's funny that in the places where people have had it the easiest, the longest, they don't wouldn't recognize the truth if it came up and bit them on the ass. It's ridiculous.
Is it cognitive dissonance or willful ignorance, like you're saying? What is that?
But a lot of people just don't care as long as their little protective bubble is safe. And I don't really, it's too bad over there, but it's a good thing that's not happening over here. Yeah, that's true. But we are under the idea that war over there, the creation of the problems over there, is going to start manifesting over here in the West too. There seems to be a lot of people who have gotten into the countries, Canada, United States, a lot of European countries. They got there illegally, and they have bad intentions. Whether it's they're going to become paid provocateurs by the Zionists, because they're the ones who created this problem, this immigration problem, illegal immigration problem. Something that was good, they turned it into a bad. And we're going to have terrorist activity going on in our own countries, which will lead to martial law and potentially another temporary lockdown.
Wait a minute. So are you spreading a gossip? Is this something crazy you're saying? Is this Glenn making stuff up?
No. Well, the G-Man's been right quite a lot all along when I said that gold prices are going to start rising. Obviously, conflict around the world, like we're talking about the war in Ukraine, is nearing it's nearing its end, fortunately. I mean, how many young men have to give up their lives, be hurt, cut up pieces, this, that, lose their families. Their families are displaced. Their businesses have been blown up. How much hell do we have to go through finally to realize that this is not the right way?
It's all by design, right? And it's when you're talking about like creation of or destruction of the families, and just by sheer effect of the war, you're going to create generations of people who are bitter. Like, you're going to tell me a Ukrainian kid who lost his family in the war, he doesn't have a right to be upset and angry at whoever, Russians or Ukrainians. So he's going to be forever angry. Hopefully not, but I'm not going to hold it against him. I'm not going to judge him on being angry for the fact that due to the Zionist activity, his family no longer next to him. What?
I agree. It's normal human behavior. But how about we try to redirect this anger to the real perpetrators that caused the problem and the pain in the first place?
Oh, the real perpetrators will come into this kid and say, oh, kid, the Russians did it. You should go and infiltrate Kremlin and blow yourself up on the square, or in the metro. The same thing. Some people say that's what happened in Russia during Chechen war. like a lot of the Chechen terrorists were also groomed by the Russians to do so, to rally up the Russians behind the movement, right? Now, the reason why we're talking about immigration, I think I know the reason why you brought it up, is because here in the West, we had a huge immigration wave from Middle East starting from early 2000s, from Afghani, Iraqi war, the Syrian conflict, anything to do with the Lebanon, North Africa. So we had this Arab Spring. So a lot of the Muslim population, Arab Muslim population, moved to the Western world. We use Canada and U.S. as an example, and those are the people that were protesting last Saturday in Montreal. And now the powers to be, the radio show I listened to this morning, they complaining. Actually, they bring it up. They're being racist themselves. It's like, like back in the day when people were complaining, why we're bringing all those Muslim population here who wants to impose,
Sharia
law, or they, how dare we to do this because, they're bringing here and they're abusing women and they don't like the, the LGBTQ agenda that we have here. This is not right, for many reasons. And then they were told like, no, stop being racist, the people too. But today on the radio, I heard they are not people because they're supporting Palestine. And how they support Palestine? Because Palestine full of Hamas. And again, you're missing the element. Who brought the Hamas in there, right? And that's the dilemma that we have. And I was facetious when I say when you're making stuff up. Brothers and sisters, here's a video from the border of the people, the people that are escaping the conflict, supposedly. And let me ask you this question, Glenn. If it's so bad when you're leaving, are you leaving by yourself or you bringing your family? Would you bring your mom with you? Like, let's say if Canada is in the civil unrest, would you leave by yourself and leave your mom at home here? Trying to fend for herself, or you take her with you?
First, I would send the patriarch. That's the man. You go over there and you see how it is. If it's safe, you think you can have a better life, then you go back and you bring your family.
So maybe that's what it is. But a lot of those patriarchs are, military age people.
Yep.
Are they infiltrating? And by the way, they also say, I don't have this video in front of me, but we did show it in the previous shows where a lot of people from Asia come in, like Chinese people coming in. How do we know this is not the Chinese army infiltrating? But here's the video. Let's play this video.
I'd have my family with me. If I was going to war, I'd be doing that alone. That's what it looks like these men are doing to me.
From Syria.
From Syria? You're from Syria too?
Yeah. All over.
Okay. Where you going? Arkansas. You? Chicago. Columbus. Texas.
New
Jersey.
New York.
New York. Texas.
New York.
California. Chicago. You? Michigan. You? New York. You? New York. You? Indianapolis. You? New York. Thank you.
Indianapolis.
Where you from?
That one came out of nowhere.
Yeah, what's there? But that's the point. That's what you see. First of all, why are they going to all those different destinations? Why don't they go to New York, which is like sanctuary? Why don't they go to sanctuary cities, right, where they will receive a lot of the social help from the government, from the local authorities and the federal authorities? You saw those young men, and I'll buy into the patriarch. They're being sent there first, and then they'll bring their families. That is possible. And I think that's what happened in Northern Europe, like in Scandinavia, but it was in reverse. So they brought in the immigration of women first, younger women, into there. And what did they do? As soon as they got the citizenships, they brought their husbands, and they brought the rest of the families in. So they used that mechanism. And that mechanism also being exploited by other countries like Canada, for example.
Champ?
Yeah.
I'd like to say, the G-Man, he is pro-immigration, proper vetting. You pass through the law-abiding channels. 100% pro for that. That's been broken purposely, a.k.a. Mr. Biden in America, for example. That administration is just allowing a free-for-all divorce. You don't know who's coming in. Trump would address that in 2024 when he takes back the Oval Office. Obviously, you have to protect the country. But myself, You know, when the people leave the country and want to start a new life and come to what they believe is a better country, that's good. That's because you aspire to do better for yourself. And then you want to bring your family over because you want them to be in that better environment also. That's a good thing. I'm pro for that, all for that. But when you're here now and you have a certain standard of a living and this is your new life, but then you see the country that you immigrated from going through a rough time, and then you start protesting and causing problem in the new country, the host country. This I do not really like. There's nothing wrong with a protest as long as it's, a sane, non-violent. But these things that are going on, you showed the viewers and the listeners about like the synagogue getting firebombed. No, that's not supposed to happen in Canada. We're not supposed to allow this. If you feel so adamantly like upset about what's going on in your country, then I suggest you get on a plane or take a boat, get over there on the front lines and do something about it. Maybe if you had 1 million people from all other countries going over there to overtake the government to stop what's going on, that would be a better solution than staying in the country that's giving you a better life and causing problems over here.
Well, I'm clearly pro-immigration. I'm an immigrant myself. I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot. And it definitely benefited me and my family being in here in many different ways. One of the bigger ways that I benefited personally, I got to see the world from different angles. So the proverbial elephant in the room that we get to touch from different, parts of it in the darkness, I got to see it myself. I got to feel that elephant. And I the whole thing with the globalist and the Zionist and left versus right, white versus black, etc., whatever the division that enforced via forced behavior on us, I'm conscious of that because of my immigration experience, because I'm able to see the people. And it's just not immigration. It's also like the focus of immigration. Okay, I'm Russian. So there's a large portion of Russian immigration or immigration from ex-Soviet republics, including Ukraine and Kazakhstan and all this other stuff. When they come here, they tend to stick to the community, to the Russian community, because, well, it's a resource. You come, you don't have the language.
Likes attract.
You don't have the connections. So you're going to be obviously attracted to the community because maybe you meet somebody, maybe you learn some roads, maybe
the language, the culture, you're familiar.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what happens sometimes, those people, they stick with that and they don't grow. They don't grow beyond. Fortunately, I was separated from my family and I went to United States to pursue basketball and education in the United States. So I was lucky enough to be separated from the Russian community, and I had to, what's the word I'm looking for? Infiltrate, not infiltrate.
Assimilate.
I assimilated and actually learned the culture, and I 100% assimilated to a culture. And even now, like, I haven't been speaking Russian as often as I used to. I'm noticing that it's more difficult for me to pick certain Russian words for me to communicate within the Russian community. So it's definitely that, and I learned to appreciate and value the community that I'm contributed to my growth, and I'm able to contribute it back via Alex Sasho even. Right, that's my contribution to the country and to the culture that built me and made me who I am today. Now, it's not just for the Russian community. The same thing for the Indian community, Sikh community, Arab community, African community. A lot of those community, Haitian community, a lot of those communities, they come together, they stick together for the same reasons, and they don't assimilate. But again, Glenn,
no, they segregate. That lies the problem. Instead of assimilating, they segregate.
But also, it's being exploited, like within those elements. Let's say if you do come from the conflict area and you still sort of, mingling within that community, you still carry a lot of resentment, right? Because you fueling off each other,
resentment,
right?
Yes.
But then that resentment can be exploited by Zionists in a way like, how do we know? Like, okay, it doesn't take you that much to push you over. And we heard many stories of law enforcement even setting up people to do drug deals or even terrorist things on an ideological level, and then be held responsible and sent to jail for it, right?
Yeah, prime example. Just 2 days ago, I was talking to a Ukrainian fellow living in Canada many, many years, and he's pro-Ukraine. I said, okay, well, I'm pro-humanity. You know what I mean? I don't want to see our Ukrainian brothers, our men getting killed and maimed and everything else. I don't want to see the Russian men getting killed and maimed and everything. So I told him, I said, you know what? You should be a little bit happy because it looks like the war is trailing off. It looks like it's going to be coming. The hostilities are winding down. It's coming to an end. He says, what do you mean? I said, well, it's 6 months. We've been talking about this on the show now that it looks like Ukraine is going to be split into the left Ukraine, which was, regular Ukrainian people, and then the right Ukraine, which was more pro-Russian people. And it looks like there's going to be a split down the middle, almost like a demilitarized zone. The same thing as you had North Korea and South Korea. Well, you're going to have East Ukraine and West Ukraine. And I said, that's a good thing. He says, no, that's not a good thing. We'll never succeed any territory. I said, yeah, but it'll stop people getting killed. His exact words were to me, well, as long as we kill more Russians. And this was a guy in Canada, and then he just walked away from me, and then my level of respect that I had for this guy shrunk so much. I said, what kind of a man doesn't realize when logic goes out the window and emotion takes over, you lose respect for this man? Can't you see it? Isn't it the betterment of humanity? But no, this guy's cut right in half between Russians and Ukrainians, or this or that, them, us. He's divided. He can't even think properly anymore.
Well, do you blame him? He's been indoctrinated for this. I mean, I
do blame him.
I know you do blame him, and
Yeah, blame the
I believe so
individual.
too. But the reasons for him to be so indoctrinated is, age-old story. We're all part of those institutions, from television, from families to education to television to entertainment, where we constantly pushed on. And even now, with this conflict that's going on, Carrie Lake. Carrie Lake was supposed to be the savior of Arizona, right, and the savior of the conservative party, and this was it. But she's also a shield now, as we find out, because here's what she said about the conflict.
Anti-Semitism was alive and well, unfortunately, but I don't think anybody expected it to be at this level. And so many of these people are young. When you look at the crowd and you kind of zoom in and see the crowd, you realize that this is what happens with years and decades of indoctrination.
She's referring to numerous protests that go across not only Canada, but U.S. or Western world in general in pro-Palestinian conflict.
A humanitarian would be anti-Zionist. An idiot would be anti-Semitic.
Oh, because Arabs are also Semites.
There you go. All the same tribe at one time.
Yep.
And we're all derivative of this tribe.
And we'll have that conversation in a second. Let's listen to what else has to say.
In our schools and universities, it's indoctrination of our young people. They don't really understand what's happening here. And anybody being for Hamas, the most barbaric terrorists on the planet, is just completely misguided.
Well, first of all, look at the language is important. She said those people are definitely not pro-Hamas. They're pro-Palestinian. They're pro-freedom. They let's stop the war.
Yeah.
But the fact that she's using that language.
Maybe she doesn't realize what she's right when she says.
No, she realizes.
You have to be you can't be pro-Hamas. You have to be anti-Hamas, pro-humanitarian. You can't be anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. You have to be anti-Zionist, pro the people. So she's a little bit mixed up. I don't know if she's doing it purposely or if she's doing it for pay-per-view here, whatever.
Of course she's doing it purposely. She's not stupid. You heard her speak before. She's saying she's a very smart lady. You telling me she doesn't know the difference?
Stupid people say stupid things, brother.
And I'm saddened that that they don't understand what's really happening. I believe that we need to help Israel wipe Hamas, the terrorists, off the planet. And that is what will help free the people of Palestine so that they are safer, and the people of Israel. It's Israel's duty, Eric, to protect their citizens. And the barbarism that we saw play out on October 7th in Israel cannot go unpunished. There must be justice, and Israel must protect its citizens. It's sickening to see these protests in the streets of our country.
You know, we in the monologue just before this, Carrie, we outlined how Barack Obama is now coming out, almost providing cover for Hamas and Palestine, what's going on.
Basically, long story short, I'm not going to play the whole video. She's going to blame Barack Obama for creation of ISIS, right? Basically, ISIS is the rebranded Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda is rebranded Mujahideen. And that's going back to the same conversation. Like, let's all clear Hamas. Hamas is who created Hamas? Are we going to hold those people accountable? Oh, wait, that's Israel. Oh, no, we can't touch that. That's a sacred cow. So, right, see the dilemma we're in? So unless we actually talk about things that need to be talked about, it's the things that we need to address. But you can't, because if you do address it that way, you're anti-Semite.
Yeah, well, I got to say something that's pro-truth. That's mainstream media. And we know that 90% of all media in North America is controlled by the 6 big groups.
Yeah.
Okay, and 6 big families, and let's say there are sub-families. They're the ones who control all the media, the entertainment industry, the sports industry, ... Just keeps going.
Oh, they also they infiltrated pharmaceutical industry. They also infiltrated the the politics, and the problem that I have with this is, okay, so if we talk again, we can't be anti-Semite if we just talk about it, right? Or you are anti-Semite if you just talk about it.
Nope. Let's refresh everybody. We're anti-Zionist. We're not anti-Semitic.
So there's a video I just came across a few days ago, and it's COVID related, and it's a pharmaceutical industry video. It's a gentleman making a presentation of all the scientists in the COVID industry during the COVID crisis. Right?
You said scientist? That's a cross between a Zion and a scientist, right?
Yeah, let's watch this video really quick.
Who's in charge of the CDC that was controlling and telling our government to shut down small businesses and what they recommend for the mandates of the vaccines and Pfizer and all? At the time when COVID was being enacted, I'm going to read off the staff of who's in charge of this CDC. The director of the CDC was Rochelle Walensky, dual citizenship with Israel. She's a Jew. Deputy director of the CDC, Ann Shawalchik, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC chief of staff, Sherry Berger, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC chief medical officer, Mitchell Wolf, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC director of the Washington office. This is pertinent to the topic. We're talking about COVID, right? Yeah, this is pertinent to COVID. So, I love you, Jennifer.
So she doesn't. I mean, why she doesn't want him to finish his presentation? And by the way, this presentation goes on and goes on. I mean, again, if you can't talk about those people, you have to question everything.
Yeah, and the truth hurts. So they're trying to cover up the truth, obviously. That's indoctrination and control your perception of reality. But I would just like to wish that he would say, is not a Jew, meaning Israeli or, that. He should have said a Zionist. That a Zionist like Biden. Daddy Biden himself said
it. Well, the language is important, and I think when another example of that will be gender versus sex. If we throw that word gender around, which is the social construct, ever since you're a kid, every time you filled out a paper application or a release form at the doctor's office, they didn't ask you for your gender, they asked you for your sex, and those 2 choices, M or F. Male or female, right?
What you think you are, yeah. Gender.
But now gender, so notice how they infiltrated the language. They switched sex to gender because sex is a biological marker, and it's either you're a male or you're female, if you're a man or a woman. But gender, you can be a chair.
Or yeah, you could think you're a dog and ask everybody to pet you.
Or you're a woman in the morning and you are gender fluid at night, right? So like that's a whole different aspect of that. So you're right. So when we use the language, it's very important. Like when we are bringing up our message, it's important to differentiate and call things what they are. Zionists are not Jews. Zionists are Zionists. Jews could be Zionist, but like let's say Daddy Biden said, "Well, I'm not a Jew, but I'm a Zionist."
A case in point is the Rothschild banking family, probably the richest, the most wealthiest group in the world. They're the ones who financed the rise of Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have an allegiance to one group of people or one country. That's a globalist. It's our world, and you people are lucky to be in it. And you're going to be slaves to us because we run things. That is the mind's belief, the perception that they don't really want people to know, but that's the control mechanism over the masses.
And the most stringent COVID policies, including vaccinations, was implemented in Israel. They don't care about their own people either. That's a show in itself. That's a show in itself.
And the counter of that, Sweden was the country with the least amount of COVID restrictions. No mandatory shots, no lockdowns, no masking. You do whatever you want. Yet they have the lowest rates of death because of the COVID. So I could hear a lot of bells ringing. People are going, oh?
Let's finish the video.
Yeah, please. So, director of the CDC of the Washington office, Jeff Rezek, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. COVID czar, Jeff Zaints, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. COVID senior advisor, Andy Slavitt, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Assistant of Health Secretary for Human Services for our country, the Assistant of Health Secretary, Rachel Levine, transgender, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew.
I ask that you hold off, Christopher.
Ma'am, I'm almost done.
Mr.
Pfizer.
Wood, the chair has ruled that your comments are out of order. She's
Transgender,
asked you to stop.
transnationalists. That's a dual universe. They don't know where they're coming or going. They're just there.
Yeah, he's in the old Jews. It's not the right. The old.
Okay, keep on going. Head of Pfizer vaccines, Albert Bourla, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Pfizer chief scientist, Michael Dostin, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Moderna chief scientist, Tal Zaks, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. BlackRock, everyone know BlackRock. BlackRock CEO, Larry Fink, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew.
That you see that stereotype. People jump on and they don't look any further into it. So then they become anti-Semitic. They say, oh, all these people are horrible people. No. It's just a group of people, and they share a similar.
But he brings up
name.
a good point. Okay, so if you're running for Canadian, for example, office here in Canada, but you have a dual citizenship. Let's say I am, right? I still have a Russian dual citizenship, and I run for prime minister or even local, federal representative or something like this. Shouldn't my allegiance be questioned? In terms of like, are you really Canadian if you hold another citizenship? Are you really going to represent interests of the people in your district, or you have alternative agenda?
Or like not to the mother country, no, to the globalists. This is what we want everybody to understand. It's not to the other, it's to the globalists, for them to have more control. And when you don't know what's really going on, then you are complicit in that top-down control, that slavery mindset. This is why we're doing this channel, is to get people aware of the realities at the macro level. It's going to affect each and every one of us at the micro level. It's coming.
Well, the countries in itself, right, is a division. I always say that Tower of Babel is real. Like, we've been divided by countries. Like, why can't Palestinian go to main Israel nowadays, right? Even though that was Palestine 67 years ago. Why can't he go back? Why can't he be there without permission, special permit? No, he used to, but not anymore because of Hamas. but Hamas created by Israel, right? That so counterintuitive. But let alone, let's say I live in Canada. I'm lucky enough that my citizenship allows me to travel down to Florida to the beach. But let's say, what if I have a relative from Russia visiting me here in Canada? Can he go without visa to the beach in Florida? No. Like, who are we if we are born on Earth and we're all humans, like without separating ourselves into ethnicities and races and, other groups? Who put other people in charge from telling you where you can and cannot go? Like that's the whole point, right? And we have multiple people on our show saying, well, it's the groups, and the groups represent the interests, and they protect the interests and protect each other, defend each other, and all this other stuff. But why do we have to defend each other from ourselves? And I think that's the point of division. That's what you bring it up. We don't need to protect ourselves from each other. We need to protect ourselves from the people who are really in charge and who are causing the division and who are really trying to separate brothers and sisters, because both Arabs and Jews are Semites. So if you're anti-Semitic, you are against both, right? That's the point. And that's also the same example, right? Russia, Ukraine, Northern Ireland, and the rest of the island, Korea, there's multiple, Vietnam. There are multiple examples.
Also, you talked about the Mujahideen. That was CIA financed during the Cold War. The Mujahideen against the Russians. And then the Mujahideen had to come back and bite the financier's arse. Now, they're labeled terrorists.
India, Pakistan. Right?
Excellent.
And now the new thing, what's the new state? The Khalistan in India. Right, the division is continuous. Who's driving that division? And what we're trying to tell you, this is not us. Like, can you, sitting on your couch playing video games and smoking weed, can you stand up and just go and divide countries? No, you can't. There's the reason why you're doing this, because you're just a pawn. But there's other people in play that are running. And Glenn said it. If those people on both the left side of the conflict and the right side, proverbial left and the right side of the conflict, if they just looked up and really to see who's stirring the conflict and they directed their attention towards those people, then we will achieve results. But we can't, because we're so focused on hate and resentment and anger. And that's why those conflicts will be continued, driven by the Zionists, artificially created, so we fight each other and don't pay attention to really what's going on.
Hence, what's going on in North America right now with the extreme left, the woke, that's an extreme on one side, and that's getting the backup. In other words, the official opposition is the extreme right. And now where you have the majority, which is the comfortable middle, they don't want to say anything. So the microphones and the cameras and everything is focused on either the extremes of the left or the extremes of the right. Meanwhile, the silent majority sits there with their knees shaking together. Why doesn't the silent majority get together and say, enough of you, you're too extreme. Enough of you, you're too extreme. And let's be pro-humanity, pro the people of the country, pro-humanity. It's very simple. And the solution to everything is always the most simplest way to get there. Except, no, the globalists want everybody to make it seem like it's too complicated. There must be another solution. It can't be that easy. Yes, nature created solutions, and they are always the most simplest way.
Water always runs down the hill, right? And my last counter argument to that, the silent majority, if it stands up, most likely it will be exploited by Zionists to bring more anger, ruckus in form of a civil war, etc. I hope that doesn't come to that, and I hope we're not experiencing the beginning of World War III conflict, which will benefit the globalists the most, because that's how they would shift their attention, and it's how they would shift the wealth from the Western world into some other place, whatever that place is. Maybe Russia. Who knows? Glenn, thank you so much for contribution today for the show. Please pay attention to the world. Please pay attention to the Zionists. Please pay attention to the globalists. But if you want to change the world, looking into yourself and change you on daily basis. Address your healthy habits and address your family, address your immediate community, and that's how we will change the world, one person at a time, one family at a time. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you for tuning in to Alex Ash Show. We'll see you in the next one. Glenn, we make a community worse for everyone.